KLM 4805 is ready for departure. Climb to and maintain flight level 90. Okay, let's step directly into the cockpit, exactly 19 seconds before the absolute deadliest aviation disaster in human history. Just imagine the scene for a second. You've got this massive KLM Boeing 747 pushing its throttles forward, engines absolutely roaring as it charges blindly into a solid wall of fog. And these are the terrifying stakes we're dealing with. In just a few moments, two fully loaded 747s are going to find themselves hurtling right towards each other on the exact same runway. When they finally manage to see one another through that thick mist, they'll have literally 9.5 seconds to react. 9.5 seconds. But you know, what's truly fascinating and honestly heartbreaking about this story is that the disaster didn't just happen in those final seconds. We're looking at a classic Swiss cheese effect, where multiple, tiny, seemingly unrelated vulnerabilities perfectly align. And that chain reaction, it actually started hours earlier. The Tenerife Airport disaster, an autopsy of human error. So, let's just dive right into this explainer. We're going to rewind the ticking clock and trace the precise web of causality, the exact chain of dominoes that ultimately doomed these two giant planes. Part 1. The Las Palmas bomb, the inciting incident. Right, so to understand how we even ended up on that fog-soaked runway, we have to look back at 1:15 p.m. that Sunday afternoon. And we're not even at the same airport. We're on the neighboring island of Las Palmas. A separatist group detonated a bomb hidden inside a duffel bag in a small flower shop in the terminal. Shortly after that, a phone call comes in claiming there's a second bomb. So naturally, authorities had absolutely no choice but to evacuate the entire place and shut the airport down. Suddenly, all these inbound flights packed with holidaymakers are diverted to Los Rodeos, which is this tiny, completely unequipped regional airport on the island of Tenerife. It's a total butterfly effect. A completely unrelated threat sets the whole tragedy in motion. Moving on to part 2, Giants at Los Rodeos. 2 crews, 2 clocks. So among the dozens of heavy aircraft funneled into this tiny little bottleneck were 2 massive Boeing 747s. One was the historic Pan Am Clipper Victor, which, by the way, was literally the very first 747 to ever carry paying passengers. The other was the flagship KLM Rhine, commanded by Captain Van Zonten, who was actually KLM's chief 747 flight instructor. The guy was a legend. But what's crucial to understand here is the immense psychological pressure bearing down on both of these highly experienced captains. It wasn't just a physical traffic jam out there on the tarmac, it was this high-stakes race against time. On one hand, Pan Am Captain Grubbs has a ticking clock to get hundreds of retirees to their Mediterranean cruise ship before it leaves port without them. On the other hand, KLM Captain Van Zonten is battling these extremely strict crew duty time limits. If his crew doesn't get back to Amsterdam within their legally permitted hours, the flight gets grounded overnight and everyone is stranded. Neither man had a single minute to spare. And then, well, you've got the actual geography of the place to deal with. 2,000. That is the altitude in feet of Los Rodeos Airport. It's nestled right on a plateau, entirely surrounded by mountains. So when warm, wet air rolls in from the Atlantic and hits those mountain slopes, it gets pushed up, it cools, and it forms clouds at exactly 2,000 feet. So the catch here is that the clouds don't just pass over this airport, they settle directly onto the runway. It creates this dangerous bowl-like trap where visibility can completely vanish in a matter of minutes. Part 3. Hindsight and the full picture. Real-time versus retrospect. Now, here's a really important thing to keep in mind. When humans lack complete information, reality just sort of fractures. We have the luxury of hindsight right now, right? We can see the whole Tenerife picture from above, but the people living it, they were trapped in the confusion of real time, operating with severely limited facts. Take a look at how this happens even today with media coverage of a recent Air India probe. A left-leaning headline focuses heavily on a pilot blame narrative, while a right-leaning one firmly declares how the flight ended in disaster before the probe is even finished. Notice how we're looking at the exact same event, the exact same court filing, but 2 completely different realities are painted, based entirely on the limited information that's highlighted. To put that into perspective, only 19% of the coverage in that example leaned left. Sheer numbers create these massive blind spots when you aren't seeing the whole board. And this modern fog of information is a really perfect analogy for the actual literal fog that was about to strike our crews at Los Rodeos, completely blinding them to the full picture around them. All right, part 4, a fatal chain of delays, the butterfly effect accelerates. Back on the tarmac, after hours of agonizing waiting, word finally comes through that Las Palmas has reopened. Okay, great. Suddenly, everyone is desperate to leave, but they're trapped by one another on this tiny little taxiway. To try and save time later, KLM Captain Van Zanten makes a fateful decision. He orders 55,000 liters of jet fuel right there at Tenerife. And the consequences of this? Absolutely devastating. First, it kept both the KLM and the Pan Am planes grounded for an extra 30 minutes while they pumped it in. Second, it added 45 tons of extra weight, meaning the KLM would accelerate much slower and need way more runway to lift off. And third, it placed 45 additional tons of highly flammable kerosene directly into its wings. Get this, 12. That's the tragic number of feet that sealed their fate. The Pan Am officers were so desperate to leave while the KLM was refueling that they actually climbed out of their plane, physically paced the wet tarmac in the drizzle, and found that their giant 747 was just 12 feet too wide to squeeze past the KLM jet. Just think about that. If that gap had been just 12 feet wider, the Pan Am would have squeezed right by, taken off, and vanished from the story entirely. But instead, they just had to sit there and wait. Which brings us to part 5. Lost in the fog, the final dominoes fall. So, by the time the fuel truck finally pulls away and the paperwork is signed, the weather completely shifts. That low cloud we talked about earlier, it slides right down from the hills. What was a slight haze turns into an absolutely blinding wall of gray. Because the main taxiway is still totally blocked by parked planes, the air traffic controller orders the KLM to do a backtrack. Now, if you don't know, a backtrack simply means driving straight down the active runway itself and then pulling a 180-degree turn at the end to line up facing the opposite direction for takeoff. Meanwhile, the controller tells the Pan Am to follow the KLM down the runway, but to exit using the third intersection, so the runway is clear for the KLM to depart. But here is where a lethal breakdown in communication happens. The KLM first officer reads back to the tower. The first taxiway we go off. He completely confused the word third with first. And this misunderstanding is drastically exacerbated by heavy accents, the fact that English was a non-native language for both the pilots and the controller, and the crew's broken expectations of the route. It was just the perfect storm for a miscommunication. And the horror unfolds instantly. Visibility plummets to just 300 meters. The tower completely loses visual contact with both 747s. And Los Rodeos is so small, it has absolutely no ground radar whatsoever. The controller cannot see where the planes are. The planes cannot see each other. They are literally just crawling blindly through the fog. And you can hear the sheer panic on the cockpit voice recorders in the Pan Am. The captain says, third, he said, but the first officer replies, I think he said first. I'll ask him again. They are in a completely unfamiliar airport, battling zero visibility, trying to find this unmarked exit called Charlie 3, all while being totally distracted by their own complex departure checklists. They're completely, hopelessly lost in the fog. So it really makes you think. We had a chain of completely unrelated minor delays, like a bomb on a completely different island, a rigid work schedule, a routine decision to refuel. When all of that combines with linguistic misunderstandings, intense psychological pressure, and a blinding wall of fog, how much control do we actually have? It leaves us staring at the tragic inevitability of human error when those Swiss cheese holes perfectly align. Thanks so much for exploring this with me, and I hope this autopsy of an accident helps you always question if you're really seeing the full picture.
For more crash investigations, subscribe to the channel, like this video and share it. Tell us what to investigate next in the comments. Thank you for watching, and stay safe.
Thank you for watching The Flight Decoder. Subscribe for more authentic aviation investigations. Like this video, share it, and leave your thoughts.